thanks so much for joining the very first Young Professional Careers Development session with Causeway. Please do bear with us. It's our first event that we're running as young professionals, and thank you all so much for your support. So just a few little bits of housekeeping to start with. We are recording this session just to make you aware, and you'll be automatically placed on mute. There's going to be a couple of points throughout where you can come and engage with us, have a little chat and that kind of thing. So we'll be taking off the mute for that. So just keep an eye out for that. We're also going to be breaking into some breakout rooms at a certain point in the event, and it's absolutely no problem if you don't want to have your camera on for that, but we'd absolutely love if you'd still partake in the conversation that's kind of going on around that. So to kick us off, I think we're going to start with our first poll. So we'd love to know, where are you joining us from? We've got a couple of options there, so yeah, submit and let's have a little look after. So I'm just going to give a quick introduction while we're waiting for that poll to come in. So my name is Megan Harkins. I'm half Irish and half Scottish, so that places me quite nicely in Causeway because we're dealing with both. I graduated from the University of Glasgow in June of 2019, and I studied psychology and politics. I then went on to work with children for a little bit in the kind of psychology role, and I'm now at a mental health startup company, and what we aim to do is to provide companies the tools to be able to support employee mental health. So that's a bit about where I'm at, and I'm going to introduce you now to our co-host, Finn.
Hello everyone, it's a pleasure to meet you all, albeit virtually. I am a trainee solicitor with the international law firm CMS, and it's through CMS that I became involved with Causeway. And I think, was that the results of the poll just up?
That was the first one. So it looks like primarily Scotland. Good, well, we're representing because I'm dialing in from Edinburgh, so that's great. Perfect. So actually, we're going to go straight into poll number 2 then. So what I'd love to know is, what stage are you at in your career? Are you just embarking? Are you a student? Let us know kind of where you're at, because we'd also love to know that for our event. So the event today is designed to be a little bit of a taster about what it's like to actually be a Causeway member, more specifically a young professional member. We're really excited for today to give everyone a chance to catch up, a chance to network, and hear some incredible advice from our amazing speakers which are lined up. So let's take a look at our running order. Oh, we've got our poll results in. Let's have a look at that quickly. So mainly young professionals, which is great because that's what we're kind of targeted at today, but it's super to see that we've got some more experienced professionals there as well, because we know that there's a lot that we can gain from the knowledge share between that. So the running order from today, so you're about to luckily finish the introduction from me, and obviously we're hosted by Finn O'Neill as well, both young professional members. We're then going to go into a little bit about Causeway, which is led primarily by Brigid, who's a Causeway director, and then the membership benefits, who's going to be led by Ailis, who's another young professional member. We're then going to go on to some CV advice and searching for the right role, and advice about some virtual interviewing, and that's led by Gillian Nimmo, and she's a recruitment consultant with Star Recruit. Then we're going to go on to purpose, people and pitch, which is Brigid Whoriskey. She's back again, and she's an executive coach, and she's going to really take us through some of the really important bits about how to sell yourself. Then we're going to go into our breakout rooms, which is going to give everyone a nice little chance to have some fun discussions. We've got a really interesting question there, so there's going to be a bit of engagement, so get excited for that. We've then got Jane McCulloch, the Consul General of Ireland, and she's going to be talking about her career progression and giving us some really nice advice there. And then the bit you're all most looking forward to is our virtual drinks at the end. So please, if you can, hang around for that, but no pressure at all. If not, you can grab a cup of coffee or you can grab a glass of wine. It's Thursday after all. So feel free at any point to put any questions that you have in the chat, in the comments box, etc., because Finn's going to be excellently picking up on them as we go throughout. So anything you'd like to know, stick it in there. And I'm now going to pass over to Brigid to tell us a little bit about Causeway.
Just unmuting myself. Thanks, Megan. Great introduction. I know, looking at the list of people who are here, some of you know about Causeway and some of you might know nothing about Causeway. So in particular, for those who don't know much about us, we're a not-for-profit membership organisation, and we're supported by the Scottish government and the Irish government, not just in funding terms, but also we get lots of support for the events and activities that we run from them, which is awesome. We're all about networking, connecting people, connecting businesses, and collaborating across the Irish Sea. We want to grow businesses, we want to grow collaboration between Scotland, Ireland and Northern Ireland. We also have a partnership with BITA, the British Irish Trade Alliance. So our members have the option to become joint members of Causeway and BITA, which is great. A statistic I often quote at these events is that we have 14,000 Irish people living in Scotland, and we've got 8,000 Scots in Ireland. And if you add to that number all of the businesses that are doing trade and exporting and importing across the Irish Sea, and all of the professional people who are collaborating or want to collaborate across the Irish Sea, that shows what huge potential there is for an organisation like Causeway. We're growing. We've run more events than we ever have since lockdown, which is great. And we've got a reputation for being kind of friendly and accessible. It's all about people. And we try to listen to our members and run the kind of events and activities and roundtables that are meaningful for them in the roles that they're in. I have something exciting to announce now. So this is my drum roll. This is my improvised drumsticks. That was my very pathetic little drum roll. Today, right now, we are launching a new program that we've been working on for some time in Causeway, and we're really excited about it. It is our Causeway Professional Partners Program. And it's kind of like a mentoring program, but with a difference, because it's got a big slice of reverse mentoring in it as well. So we are connecting experienced leaders with young professionals in our network. And in Causeway, we're quite excited about hearing the voice of our young professionals. Many of them are turning out to be the change makers and the influencers today in today's big topics that are affecting the world. And we want to bring those voices stronger into Causeway and be influenced by our young professionals, as well as giving them the benefit of the support from our more experienced members. So the benefits of our Causeway Professional Partner Programme, they're twofold. So one is, it's an opportunity for you young professionals just to get a bit of support when you're early on in your career. And that's kind of friendly, accessible advice, guidance, maybe access to networks and contacts, somebody that you can talk to in kind of a safe and secure way, bounce ideas off, get some help and support from. Then for our experienced leaders, we feel that we have a great opportunity to learn from the younger talent, as I said. So it's getting exposure to new ideas, getting different perspectives, getting your take on the world, and maybe even, if you play your cards right, help with your social media presence. You never know. So that's the Causeway Professional Partners Programme. You're the first to hear about it. It is free to all Causeway members, and we'll be writing out to everybody after this event with further details on the programme. So I hope some of you will sign up. Back to you, Finn.
Thanks, Brigid. I think that was an excellent description there of what Causeway has to offer. We're now going to pass on to Ailis, who's going to discuss further her experience of Causeway and her experience of how that kind of a mentoring program might work.
Thank you for that, Finn. Hello, everyone. As Finn said, my name is Ailis, and I joined Causeway this year as a recent graduate who wished to build their professional network. And since joining, I've participated in so many interesting events, including how to bounce forward from COVID-19, which included a motivational speaker. I found it really informative and relevant, and it was such a unique opportunity to learn how to restart and find your new normal in this climate. Another event we've run is personal resilience, And during this, I learned about what you can do and what you can stop doing in order to help you become more resilient. Finally, the favourite event that I attended was climate change, an event with industry experts. And actually, after the event, Aoife connected me to a chartered environmentalist who also I managed to have a one-to-one informal chat with. We connected on LinkedIn, and this was so valuable to me because it was a mentoring session where I learned tips about the industry, how to search for jobs, and other networks that somebody who was looking to get involved in the environmental sector could use. My favourite thing about the Causeway network is that it's so warm and welcoming, and you just don't feel intimidated by the people there. And the board works so hard to engage members at all levels, whether you're a young professional, whether you're a bit older, there's just a constant passion and drive there. They're always offering inspiring events, relevant ones that are current and timely, as I said, like the COVID one about personal resilience, and of course climate change is so timely right now. And now I would say is the perfect time to take advantage of the opportunity to network online. If COVID hadn't happened, a lot of the events we had would have been in person. So there's been a real drive recently to move these online, which I think is a huge benefit because it allows you to network from anywhere in the world. So as we saw from the poll, that's probably England, Ireland, or Scotland. But it's such a great time to network online, and it just feels like the perfect time to do that. And it's such a great network. So I'll pass you back to Finn to move us on.
Thanks very much, Ailis. I think that was it really does compound what the network has to offer, these kind of partnerships that hopefully in discussion we can talk about further. But if in the chat, if you're interested either in as a young professional or a more experienced member in how that might benefit you, please let us know which side of that you're on and what you might hope to get out of it. I'll pass now on to Gillian Nimmo from Star Recruitment, who is a recruiting consultant and is going to talk to us about securing your next role and about CVs. So thanks, Gillian.
Gillian, I think you're on mute. It might just be me. It's the technological problems we're facing.
There we go. And yes, I've just put together very quick tips on job searching, finding the right role for yourself, and then about setting yourself apart. So the first thing is that when you're searching for the right role, make sure that you know what you want in terms of what does your dream job look like. So make sure that you're fully understanding what is involved from a practical and logistical point of view. So it's not just what the job specifications state and what the expectations from your future employers are. It's about the logistics of, are the hours structured or are they flexible? Is it a creative environment or one that's regulated? Is it an office environment, or is there remote working, which we've all, we're doing at the moment? So make sure that how they expect you to work fits in with your life. Can you learn more about the role in a hands-on environment? So before you enter into the new career that you're looking for, is it a possibility that you can volunteer? And it's almost a try before you buy in terms of, getting to understand what the actual role involves. And then also, who are the people that you know within the industry? Is there somebody that you can speak to who's actually doing the role right now and can give you a little bit of insight into that hands-on experience? There's also about being passionate. So when you're doing something that you're passionate about, it doesn't seem like you're working. And if you're passionate, you're therefore going to be driven to succeed, you're going to have fun at work, and therefore you're going to have successful results. So just think about what makes you get out of bed in the morning. Why do you jump out and get excited about going to work? And it's not just about the fact that we've all got bills and commitments that we need our financial reward from. It's about what is your primary purpose to get up and out in the morning? And does this match what your future employer sets out as their purpose? The other part of knowing the role is, does it fit in with your life? So does it meet your cultural expectations and your values? And does the brand best represent you? So for example, if you have a high sales, if the job rather has a high sales expectation and you feel uncomfortable in that environment, it's clearly not the best fit for you. Or maybe you prefer working as a team, but this is a remote role. So make sure that it's something that works for you. And that's very much something that I gained from experience. I'm very much a team player. I've been in a role where I was part of a team, but it was very much a remote role. So therefore, I felt quite isolated, quite lonely. It's whatever is for you. So make sure you understand what it is before you go in. Be proactive. How much do you actually know about the industry and the company that you're applying for? So make sure you're researching all the companies, the industry leaders, the professional associations. Know who they are, know how they influence the industry, and understand the impact they have. By having that knowledge, you will then have the power to be able to understand what it is they're actually trying to do within their industry. Learn who the competition is. So what do they do well? And what are their opportunities? And if you can identify those, you'll be able to see what impact you'll be able to make in the business. There's some obvious tips and hints, like following companies and personnel from those businesses on LinkedIn and being up to date as you can with their news, their blogs, their posts, always being the first to know. And something that may attract you to them is, do they contribute to any sociable or charitable organisations? That might sit well within your moral and values. And then also, when you're searching for the right role, think outside the box. So what events does the industry have that you can engage with? You know, put your face to a name with prospective employers and peers, and it will effectively help your opportunities. Networking is definitely a powerful means to meet people and learn as much as you possibly can. There's also professional organisations and associations that are easy ways of keeping up to date with industry knowledge. Influential personnel and others have awareness of you. So for example, Star Recruitment, we are members of Homes for Scotland, which are a body that works with the government and then works alongside all the builders and developers in Scotland. Although we don't actually build or are no way involved in any construction, we are supporting this industry, so therefore we can attend events held by them, we can meet new people and those who possess opportunities for our business development. So once we've got all that information together, it is very much about setting yourself apart. So how do you do that in terms of your CV and then when you have an interview? So my top tips with regards to a CV is it should be a maximum of 2 to 3 pages. Ideally, you do not want any more than 2 pages. Remember, this is not a novel. It's a summary of your achievements. So therefore, make it short and snappy. You only have about 30 seconds to 1 minute to grab their attention. So you need to make it count. What layout you should use should also be thought about as well in terms of grabbing future employers' attentions. Think about the marketing campaigns and advertising that you see out and about. Anything fussy can be overwhelming, so therefore try and keep to a simple clutter-free CV. It's a lot easier to read than one that is cluttered. And try not to be tantalised by the different array of templates. Simple and clear is definitely the best. I then often see CVs that can be split into multiple sections. So again, keeping simple and clear as the main focus, I would keep 3 sections. So your personal statement is a must, but it does need to be short and brief. This is going to be a quick description of how you approach your role in your career. Utilize keywords from their job description to tailor make your CV to that role and try and mirror what they're looking for. So you may use words like confident, tenacious, proactive, adaptable, just utilize the tools that you've got there to be able to build and create a kind of picture of you within a very short space on the page. You would then have your work experience and always start with your most recent role. Bullet points will be used for your main responsibilities. Again, I go back to what I previously said, it's not a novel. State the top key priorities of your role, but if you can, try and focus more on your achievements, because this is the evidence of your skill and your talent, and you want to show you the value of you to your future employer. So from that point of view, always try and make sure you've got evidence to what you do. And then list all your older job roles, but with each one, try and have less information. They're going to be more interested on the recent ones, so that's where the meat should be on your CV. And then have a short section on education. It doesn't need to be too long. Obviously, make sure any professional qualifications are on there and they go at the top of the section. And I would also suggest taking any dates of your education off as well. By putting the years that you were maybe at university or at school, it can potentially prejudge your CV because it then allows people to know your age. And from that point of view, we don't want any prejudgment. You want to get your CV in front of them, and they want to be able to, you know, fall in love with you with regards to what's actually in the body of the CV. So your top half of your CV is the most important. Really focus on this and have attention to detail in this area. So a couple of things, what not to do. Don't expand on the truth. Be completely honest. Do not claim to something that you therefore cannot provide evidence for. Do not include a photo. A lot more people are doing this, but again, do not allow employers to prejudge you for any reason. And do not leave any gaps in your employment. If you have had any long-term sickness, or you've been traveling, or for whatever reason it may be, just be open and honest. And then two must-dos is, one is have more than one CV. You will need to tailor your CV to specific roles, so it's always good to have a couple of choices there that you can then tweak with each application you have. And always write with confidence and positivity. Always think about a positive growth mindset. Never put in anything about what you can't do or any development areas you've got. This is about how you are going to bring value and bring return to your employer. So next I'll just move on to, you have an interview. So well done, your CV has got you this far and everything is going in a positive direction. So to start with, again, let's get some research done, but let's get some depth put into our research. Know the company inside and out. So look at where and when did they start? What have they achieved? How did they get to where they are? Do they have any known strategies? What challenges have they overcome? So has there been any economic or industry issues that they've had to be tenacious and, you know, be proactive to try and navigate around them? Are they industry leaders? Are they setting the way, or have they got some obstacles to overcome to get to be the industry leaders? And then ultimately, why do they do it? What is their primary purpose? What are their core principles? And more businesses now are having outrageous ambitions. So these are ambitions that are realistic, but they're just out of touch at the moment. They're somewhere that they can work towards, but they know it's just slightly in the distance for them. The second thing I would say is always think about how and why, and not what, when you are in an interview. Your CV tells your employer what you do and what you've achieved, so now it's time to bring your CV to life. So how do you fulfill your role? How do you ensure you deliver compliance and consistency? How do you communicate and ensure effective working practices? How do you measure success? How have you created a positive culture? How do you drive yourself? Remind them, why do you get up out of bed every day? And remember, it's not about the pound signs. You have a passion, so show them this. And again, remember, provide evidence to support it by giving examples. I would also say to utilize your interests. Try to keep these off your CV because, again, it could be a conflict of interest. You might like rugby, they might like football. You might like musicals, they may like horror movies. Just keep things like that off your CV. But what to do is let your personality shine through, be authentic and true to yourself, and during initial conversations, try and pick up what's being said and then use those as a hook to find a common interest. And you can also use hobbies and interests to provide evidence of how you would approach your role. So, for example, do you play an instrument? You know, that's you developing yourself. You've got a desire to learn and you want to progress. Or maybe you do play a sport, and that shows tenacity, shows social skills and a drive that are skills and drive that are inherent in you. I would also say first impressions count, so dress for the role. So if you think of two different companies, and in my head I was thinking of Google and then the Bank of Scotland or the Bank of Ireland, what is the culture? Would you go to Google dressed in a suit, shirt and tie? Probably not, but then would you go to work in a bank dressed in jeans and a t-shirt? Probably not. So always be smart, even in a relaxed environment. No jeans, t-shirts, trainers, possibly an obvious thing to say, but trust me, I've had many people turning up like that. If it is a relaxed environment, maybe jeans, smart shirt, jacket and smart shoes. Think dress up to dress down. So you are dressing up, but it's certainly a little bit more of a downplay. And if in doubt, just go smart. You can never overdress. And then lastly, the new interview, which we're all doing now, is the virtual one. So a few tips and hints just to think about. Take on board absolutely everything I've said, but add on the fact that you need to find a quiet place where you will not be disturbed. And then think about your background as well. I've been in a lot of interviews recently where there have been a lot of things in the background that have just taken my attention in different ways. So think about what your background will tell your potential new employer. What room are you in if you're at home? So think about who's going to be coming in or out. Have you got animals? Are they going to be nudging you, walking across your camera? I know it's all probably happened to us, and I know there's a few BBC newsreaders out there that are still regretting it, but just have a think about these things. Practice your positioning so that they can see you and you're in a comfortable place. And then think about how you're going to engage, because it's even more important now. Focus on the screen if you can and look extra invested in the conversations, because they've got to decipher where your eye contact is. Speak clearly and slowly, and as you've seen today, technology has a habit of letting us down at times. Screens do freeze, so therefore you'll be able to know where you've finished your conversation and you'll be able to pick it up very easy. And then because they can't see your hands, they can't see the table, have your copy of your CV in front of you and use the situation to your advantage. Write down notes that you can therefore take a cue from. So I've quickly summarised it in my second slide. So it's just a top 5 to remember. So do your homework, be present, keep your CV clear and simple, always ask how and why rather than what, and the most important thing is just to be authentic and be yourself. So that's all my top tips. So I will hand over back to Finn.
Thanks, Gillian. I must say I really enjoyed that. I think there was a lot there that we can take away for everyone on the call, whether you're at the young professional level or a much more senior level. There was a lot of really good content there. We are going to dovetail beautifully into Brigid Whoriskey's next discussion, where she's going to talk about purpose, people, and pitch.
Thanks, Finn. And that was great, Gillian. Actually, I've taken some notes, so that was really informative. So I'm now wearing my Envision Business Solutions hat on, which is my business. If I'd been really smart, I would have changed my Causeway banner at the back, but that was far too complex for me. So when I was asked to speak with kind of my coaching hat on, because I work as an executive coach and I do quite a bit of career development work in my coaching, I was trying to think in 10 minutes what's really important and what have I learned personally and what am I encountering when I talk to clients. And these 3 things came up, the importance of purpose, people, and your pitch. So that's what I'm going to talk about. And actually, I should have mentioned that there will be some notes going out to you after this, kind of a summary of some of the main points that we've made. So, you know, certainly take notes if you wish, but you will be getting something. So finding your purpose, and Gillian talked about this also when she talked about, you know, find something you're passionate about. To be honest, it took me quite a while in my career to realize the importance of this. What is my purpose? Where do I want to work? Where do I want to make an impact? And there's 4 questions that I think help you to understand what your purpose is, because it's not always clear, particularly early in your career. You can find yourself in a position where you think, oh, this isn't what I want to be doing, but you might know exactly what you want to be doing. But think about what makes you come alive. When are you absolutely in the zone, in flow, firing on all cylinders? Because when you're in that state, you're usually working towards your purpose. Get to know your strengths. So many of us underestimate our strengths. And in fact, we can almost do the opposite. If we have something we're really good at and therefore find easy, we can kind of dismiss it and say, oh, that's just communication skills, but anybody can do that. I really need to work on my analytical skills or something. And actually those core skills that you have, the things that you find easy, they are probably the areas that you will make the biggest difference. And if you learn more about them and work to your strengths, you will both enjoy your work more and you'll have a bigger impact. And I'm going to give you a little, my top tips on how to identify your strengths in a minute. Think about where you add the greatest value. So in the work that you've done or the things that you've been involved in, when have people given you positive feedback? When have you felt, gosh, that worked really well? And again, these are the kind of things that will usually be connected with your purpose, with the area that you really want to focus on for your career. And this is my big philosophical call. So how would you measure your life? Actually, if you kind of project yourself forward, 20 or 30 years, and for the young professionals, when you're even as old as me, how would you measure your life? What would you look back on and say, that was what was really important? So think about those 4 questions, ponder them, come back to them again and again, and that will give you a much clearer sense of purpose. And they can change over time, so don't be afraid to come back and revisit them. So understanding your strengths, I mentioned that some people find that a bit tricky, and also your strengths can change with the experience that you get. But one exercise that I've used with some of my clients that's really simple to do and can be really helpful is the reflected best self exercise. So there's 4 steps in this. The first one is identify some people that you want to get feedback from. If it's your career that you're interested in, they should be probably people connected with your career in some way. You probably need about 10 to make this meaningful, but contact around 10 people and ask them a simple question. Say, I'd like to get feedback on my strengths, and can you give me specific examples of where you've seen that strength in action? Most people will respond if you ask them to give you feedback. It might feel a bit cringy at the beginning, but do it, and you will get feedback, and it will be useful. Take that feedback then and look at the patterns that are arising. You might be surprised by some of the things that come out. People might use different words for different things. So one person might say, oh, you're great at influencing. Another person might say, oh, you're really good at stakeholder management, but they might kind of mean the same general area. So just look for those patterns that are coming out of the feedback. And then take that and write a self-portrait. It's probably better to do it in the 3rd person. So write a description of yourself based on the feedback that you've received, not based on your own view, but based on that feedback that you've received, and then certainly edit it and add in some of the other things you'd like to. But you may find that that self-portrait is slightly different to what you'd normally do. And guess what? For the stuff that Gillian was talking about in terms of the summary that you put in, the personal profile at the beginning of your CV, that gives you some great content for that personal profile. And then it's simple. You work to those strengths and you apply them to your career and what you do. And when you get an opportunity to get involved in something, think of what those strengths are and how you can best apply them. So that's my first P on purpose, really understanding the purpose, the direction you want to go in your career, and what those strengths are that you're going to be able to work to and be successful at. The second P is people, and people, I'm going to particularly focus on networking. Like, I could spend kind of an hour on each one of these topics, but Aoife, could we run the networking poll, please? And if you could just answer the questions on that poll on what your experience is of networking. About half of the people have voted, so 80% already. Okay, I think we're ready to publish. Right, so we've got a real mixed bag. We've got some people where networking is just core to the way that they work. Some people who do networking from time to time. We've got some people who aren't that experienced yet at networking. And we've got a couple of people who have admitted that they kind of go, when it comes to networking. Networking is something that a lot of people find difficult. So you're not on your own if you were on that last category. And if you look at the picture here, networking doesn't have to be about walking into a big room and having to walk around and introduce yourself to everybody and find witty and intelligent things to say. Actually, networking can be thinking about the kind of web of people that you're connected with. And if I know Finn, and Finn works in CMS, and he might be connected to somebody there that I would like to get in contact with, I can go through Finn to get in contact with that person. It's about thinking through who your network is and why they are important to you. So I would say for networking, show an interest in other people. It's not just about what you want, it's also about what you can give. And if you're interested in other people, they will want to talk to you. Find a way to help them if you can. A brilliant way to build your network and build relationships with people is help them. So for example, the 3 young professionals that are running today's event have networked with some of us in Causeway. They've really helped us by running this event, but that has now really strengthened their network because we all now have a pretty good relationship and they've got access to all the people in the Causeway network. So that's a great example of reaching out, finding a way to help people as a way of connecting with them. Keep in touch with your connections. It's very easy in today's world to lose contact with people, but for the people who you think might be valuable to you or who you can be valuable to, or you've got something in common, it's worth reaching out, keeping in touch. You know, during these times of isolation, pick up the phone for a chat every now and again, as well as all the online stuff. And just decide who you want to network with for what. And get out there and do it. It's really just talking to people and communicating with people. Joining an organisation like Causeway is a great way to extend your network because it's a membership organisation and there'll be loads of opportunities for you to connect with people. And it gives you an opportunity to pick up the phone or, you know, connect with somebody on LinkedIn because you're members of this organisation. And there will be others in the sectors that you're interested in. I love this quote from Michelle Obama. But success isn't about how much money you make. It's about the difference you make in people's lives. And I think if you think of your networks, not only in terms, as I said earlier, of what they can give to you, but what difference you can make to other people, you'll be astounded at how much of that will come back to you later on in your career. And it's not always the people that you think will be most valuable to you that wind up being most valuable to you. That's certainly been the case in my career. So my last P is your 30-second pitch. And your 30-second pitch, I think, is really important. Again, it goes back to what Gillian was saying about your interviews and the impression that you make. It's much easier to rabbit on for 10 minutes about who you are and what you're about than it is to do it in 30 seconds. But if you can really nail your pitch to 30 seconds, you are going to have a brilliant impact on people. And I think there's 4 things that should be in your 30-second pitch. What you want, you should lead with who you want to be. So if you're a student or if you're a graduate looking for your first job, you mightn't start with, well, I'm a graduate from Trinity College Dublin. I studied business studies and I did my final year thesis on such and such. You know, you might start with, I want to build a career in a large corporate working in something to do with human resources or something. You know, you start with what you want rather than giving a lot of background, and then you can bring in your background. So something about what you want, what you do or what you've done. So something really significant about what you're doing now or something you've done in the past. What you bring to the table that differentiates you from other people. Think about those strengths that we talked about earlier on. It could be the experience. Even if you're not very experienced because you're at an early stage in your career, you have a life experience. You will all have COVID stories as to what you did during COVID and how you survived and did you give anything back to the community. You all have stories before COVID and you will after. But what you bring to the table, and finally, what do you really care about? What are you passionate about? So for me, for example, in my 30-second pitch, I always say that I am really passionate about having an impact, whether it's having an impact on one individual or on an organization or on society. But in everything I do, I want to have an impact. And that's really important to me, but yours will be different. Don't be afraid to say what you care about. Steve Jobs had a great quote that he gave in a speech he gave to students at a graduating ceremony. And he said, the only way to do great work is to love what you do. If you haven't found it yet, keep looking, don't settle. And I think that's a great piece of advice for anybody at any stage in their career. So I would urge you to think of that and hold it dear. We will share this with you afterwards. And as I said, this could be a whole workshop in itself, but I hope that gives you a couple of tips. Two quick things to leave you with. One is action planning. If you commit to taking one action from today's seminar, you will probably have an impact on your career going forward at whatever stage you're at in your career. And it's been proven that by taking one small action, that makes it far more likely that we will then do more and make bigger changes. It's too easy to come to something like this and then say, that was interesting, and go away and forget about it. So I'd like you to now or over the next few minutes, commit to doing one thing that you'll either stop, so something that you're going to either stop doing, or something that you're going to start doing, or something that you're already doing, but you're really going to turbocharge it. You're going to continue. And as a wee tip going forward, it's a great way to manage your career and your priorities anyway, is to have something in each of those columns. Just stop, start, continues. But for today, I'd love it if people could commit to doing one thing that's going to help you with your career, whatever stage of your career you're at. And finally, I'm going to talk about an individual. So this is somebody who was put up for adoption at birth, raised by high school dropouts, only two, I suppose, unsurprisingly, drop out of college. So it doesn't sound like a very impressive individual. And then changed the world. So this is my pal, Steve Jobs again. So what's your excuse? You know, you can achieve whatever you want to achieve if you put your mind to it. So the very best of luck to everyone, and I will hand you back to Finn.
Thank you very much, Brigid. That was a really fantastic discussion, really inspiring. I think the points you made and also the points that Gillian made about self-reflecting in this period can be really important, because we're all learning new skills and we're all experiencing new skills of our own. And I'm wondering if, Brigid, if yourself or if Gillian, if you've got any quick thoughts on what reevaluating yourself in a digital sphere means, or what the impact might be.
I'll start and then hand over to Gillian. So if I interpret your question correctly, it's kind of in the fact that we're living in a virtual world now.
Yeah, indeed.
I mean, I think we've all had a learning curve, and certainly if I put sort of my Causeway hat back on, one of the things that we did in Causeway after lockdown is we kind of woke up one morning and said, oops, everything we had planned was face-to-face. And what are we going to do? What platform are we going to use? We didn't have a team of very experienced webinar people or whatever. And we dived in and went virtual. And that learning, well, I found it invigorating, to be honest, to be experimenting with different things. And I have done webinars in the past, but I have done more webinars and virtual events in the past few months than I have ever done in my life, like many people, I'm sure. So I would say the biggest, I've certainly learned an awful lot of skills. I'm far more tech savvy than I was before. But I think one of the biggest things that I've learned is just dive in and do it. You know, don't be afraid by any of this stuff. Just dive in and do it. And don't be afraid to ask people. I'm always asking people, how do you do this? How did you do that? People love to share, and you learn that way as well.
That's brilliant. Dive in and do it. I think we should all be writing that one down. Gillian, have you got any quick tips on this?
Yeah, I think just added on there, you know, yeah, definitely dive in and do it, but keep doing it, that repetition. You know, if anybody's like me, you know, I am nervous around technology sometimes, but the more I do it, the more comfortable I am. It's like any situation, the more you do it, the more it just seems as if it's part of the norm. So just keep going with it, I think.
Brilliant. Well, thanks to Brigid and to Gillian and to Ailis for speaking so far. I'm now going to pass over to Megan to discuss the breakout room exercise we've got.
Well, I've got some exciting news for the 8% of people that absolutely hate networking, because here it comes, guys. So what we're going to do is we're going to split up into some breakout rooms. You'll be in with about 5 people. And what we're asking you to do is to discuss the question, what is the best and worst piece of advice that you've given? And this is where we can start our knowledge share. Let's begin. The young professionals, what are we learning? For us and the senior professionals, tell us about your advice as well. So I'm going to give an example of mine so far. The best piece of advice that I've received is to learn how to LinkedIn stalk very carefully. So don't be afraid that they're going to see your profile. I think that's absolutely fine. But if there is a dream job that you want to do, go and speak to that person. I met up with this random woman that I stalked on LinkedIn who did a master's that I wanted to do. And what it taught me was, what did I have to do to get in? What was it actually like doing that? And I think it can really help you get to your career goals if you realize how they've got to theirs. The worst piece of advice I've kind of ever been given, I guess, is to have a blanket CV for everything. As kind of Gillian touched upon, it's just not how to do it. Jobs are going to be able to tell, and you need to be able to tailor it. So I've kind of learned from that now. So what we're going to ask is, we're going to split you up into breakout rooms. Again, you don't have to have your camera on if you don't want to. That's absolutely fine, but we'd love if you could partake in the conversation. We're going to ask you all to introduce yourselves quickly, just so you know who you are. And then what we're going to ask is if you can nominate one kind of spokesperson to come back and feedback, or if it's a Causeway member, they can do it super easily, just so we can have a bit of an open discussion and really all learn from each other. So, oh my goodness, my screen's getting really overwhelmed here with all the pictures popping up.
That's great, though. I love it.
Yeah. So thanks everyone for participating in that. I'm sure that could have been a little bit daunting, but really good opportunity to do a little bit of virtual networking. So I guess I'll start here with my team. I had a lovely chat with Amy and Eugene, and some of the kind of talk to best advice that we got was, don't be afraid. So again, this goes back to the LinkedIn stuff, that people generally do want to help. People generally want to try and help you go in the right direction, give you advice. And do you know what? If you message someone and they don't reply, that's the worst that happens. Like, you just get a patch and you move on and it's fine, and you find someone else that might be able to help. So don't be afraid of that. And the next good piece of advice, which is what Eugene was saying, is that he finds that being open, honest and transparent in the workplace is the most effective way. When there's a kind of stuff going on under the undercurrents, people aren't speaking and communicating, it can cause some real issues. So having that really open conversation and being really honest with your team about how you're feeling and everything is something that's really going to help. The two kind of worst piece of advices that we went for, another one, sorry, just while I'm on the good stuff, is Eugene has been doing some walking meetings recently. Love that idea, where he's been meeting colleagues and they've been going for like a nice walk around, and that's how they've been doing their meeting, and it gets around all the kind of COVID stuff. So the worst piece of advice that they've been given, Amy was once told to be passive aggressive in your workplace so that people don't push you around. So we kind of had a discussion and agreed that that maybe wasn't the best approach if you're starting a new job. And what was the other one that we got? I can't actually remember. I don't know. Amy or Eugene, do you want to jump in? My notes are maybe a bit jumbled here. But Eugene's other one was about just keeping well yourself in all different respects and how that helps well. But Amy and Eugene, if you don't want to jump in with anything else, then I'll pass over to Ben.
Thank you very much, Megan. That all sounded very positive.
Yeah.
I had an excellent discussion with Gillian, with Saoirse, and with Martin. Some excellent things came out of that, like embracing those breaks in your career, and really try not to put yourself down, which was really fantastic advice. We might welcome any other views. Anyone wants to come off mute and jump in or put their views in the chat? We've got a couple of minutes.
Noreen, you go for it. Take us away.
Thank you so much. I was in a lovely group with Donald, Siobhan, Peter and Ellen. And I have to confess, we did have a lot of chat going on, so we perhaps don't have as many points. They can maybe disagree with that. Some positives were, do follow-up calls. If you've tried to, call someone, make contact, to do something, and you don't hear back, don't give up. Keep on at it. Another thing was, the more you put in, the more you get out of situations. Another aspect was the communication, to communicate clearly and concisely, which sort of goes back to something that you said, or was it Finn, sorry, about passive aggressive. So communicate clearly and obviously in the right terminology. Another one was the human aspect, that we all are human. You don't get to walk in someone else's shoes, so you've got to think outside the box when you're dealing with someone and not jump to assumptions. Negatives, I actually think we really struggled. I think Peter was the only one that had one, which was he was told not to take so many risks when he was playing sports. So Siobhan said she didn't know she liked that one. She thought, got to be careful there. So that was us. So I'm going to pass back to you, Megan, or Finn, sorry. Don't know if
Thanks, Noreen. That was really interesting. Is there anyone else like to feed in, either via the chat or come off mute?
Emma, go for it.
Brigid wrote me into speaking, so we didn't really have any negatives so much, but we said a key one was to always communicate with employer, like your fellow colleagues and your employers. Like if you were struggling to meet a deadline or something, just speak to them, and people do tend to be quite understanding. Also prepare for an interview or any work, just make sure you're prepared, and yeah, don't take work home with you. So a lot of people, I think especially at the moment with a lot of people working remotely, it's quite easy to not have your set working hours and maybe overworking, and it tends that can maybe have a bad effect on your mental health, or you won't actually end up working very effectively. So that was our kind of main point.
Super, thanks so much. And David, I think you had your hand up. Is that right?
I did indeed, yeah. Yes, I did.
Take it away.
Thanks, Megan. Yes, there was a group of three of us. It was Matt and Margaret. I think Margaret's now to shoot off. But the three of us had a good discussion. I'll start with the negative side of things, I suppose. The kind of common theme was not so much bad advice, but lack of support. So it's get back in your box, deal with it. You know, just you don't have a voice type stuff, and I think that's something that happens quite a lot. Certainly when you're new in business or new to employment. One of the worst things that I heard myself when I was a new wet around the ears salesperson many years ago was you should be lying for a living, which is very stereotypical of a salesperson. And I think I lived with that for a number of years before realising it was the wrong way to live your life. That's a kind of worst of the negative aspects of what we uncovered. The best advice we've had, and I think someone else said it, might have been yourself, Megan, was never be afraid to ask or never be afraid. And I think that's sometimes something that as a young professional or new to work, you feel as if you don't have a voice and you can't ask questions because you think it's silly or stupid or irrelevant. But I don't think there's ever a question that should be treated in that manner. One was also just don't be daunted by the size of a budget that you start to inherit, whether it's £5 or £5 million. As long as the process and the procedures and the governance is there, then treat that money as whatever it should be. Nothing else really, but that was the main aspects.
Thanks for that, David. More great advice. I have to say I like never be afraid. That's a good thing to live by. I think then we've had such brilliant discussion. We're going to move on now to our last substantive speaker, Jane McCulloch, who is the Consulate General in Ireland for Ireland in Scotland.
Hello, thanks very much. I'm delighted to join you here today and to see so many young professionals engaging with Causeway and the networking opportunities that it brings for all of you. I've also been really enthused by the enthusiasm and energy in this call and a lot of the really good advice that has been shared. I realise that the beginning of a career is a really exciting time for people, but it can also be very daunting. You know, stepping out on new paths, but maybe not so sure where they're going to go. But there's also big decisions and a lot of advice from other people to be filtered through, and that can be a bit of a challenge. So I think the idea of a job for life is pretty out of date at this stage, and I do hope that the idea of a career for life is not something that anyone fixates on anymore. There's a world of opportunities out there. I also realise I'm saying that from the very comfortable position of being a civil servant, but that's not to say that in 5 or 15 years time, or even in 25 when I hope to contemplate retirement, that I'll still be a diplomat. So the message that I would like to give you, and I'll talk through a bit of my own career history, is that the obvious or the presumed path is not necessarily the most rewarding one. And there are many, many routes to get where you want to go, even if you don't yet know what that destination is. So when I started out, even leaving school, my Leaving Cert results, which for those of you in Scotland is like your hires, weren't as good as they probably should have been. And I didn't get to go where I wanted initially when I was starting out in university. I wanted to read English. I ended up failing first year in Trinity College in Dublin at F1, F2 and F3 levels. So I'm an accomplished failure. And in the meantime, I was accepted to St Andrews to read English. So that's the first meander in my road along the way. At St Andrews, I can't say I was a particularly diligent student. I quickly became an expert in negotiating extensions to my essays. I edited newspapers, I ran referendum campaigns, I produced theatre shows, I had a great social life. So all the things, you know, beyond the library that make for a rounded student. And halfway through my degree, I became really unwell. I was suffering badly with depression, and I took some time out and came back to Ireland and got better and went back, but I had to start over again and repeat some classes and catch up. So I graduated a year behind all my peers. So that was 6 years, 2 universities and 1 degree at the end of it. So that's a pretty meandering student route to start with. And then in my final year in St Andrews, along with a lot of my peers, I was in the, I would have been a target for, I don't know if it's still known as the milk round, but it was then, where the blue chip companies would come around and visit the universities and target students for graduate recruitment programs. For anyone who's graduated this year, I'm sure that's had to happen in a different way, or in a very strange way. So it really wasn't my thing. I went to a lot of presentations and drank a lot of cheap wine in the function rooms of hotels in St Andrews. But the presentations from people who I'd known who'd graduated a year or two before were pretty convincing, as were the financial packages. And I went through the first couple of rounds with Procter & Gamble for their kind of product manager roles. And then I just decided it wasn't for me. But I did take advantage of a few flights to London to visit friends along the way. I was still writing for the student newspaper, which in those days was winning a lot of national awards. And I had pieces published in the Scotsman and in the Examiner in Ireland, and spent a month doing an internship in the Examiner. So I was all set for journalism. And I made a very late decision between my final exams and graduation that I was not going to go down to Edinburgh and join the Scotsman as a junior reporter. I had friends who had done it, and some of the kind of moral compromises they'd had to make as junior news reporters weren't ones that I wanted to make. That's no judgment on journalists. I still wonder whether it's the route I should have taken, but yet again, it was a meander in my route as to what I was going to do next. So there I was, approaching graduation with no plan. I spent the summer up to graduation working in a bar and a delicatessen in the town, and I had a kind of half worked out plan to come down to Edinburgh, house sit for someone I knew was going away on a long honeymoon, and see if I could get some temporary work in the festivals, because my new career idea was to go into the events industry. I figured that I'd staged enough political campaigns, theatre productions, referendum stunts. My favourite one was when we wrapped the town of St Andrews in yellow and black hazard tape at 5 o'clock one morning, just at the end of the foot and mouth crisis. It was part of an illustration of a campaign to keep the National Union of Students out of St Andrews. It was highly relevant at the time, but it made for good stunting, and we kind of enjoyed it. I also interviewed for a PR company around the same time, but they wouldn't hire me till I'd bought a car, and the salary they were prepared to pay me wouldn't have even paid for the car. So that wasn't one for me. But one day I was working in the deli in St Andrews, and the lady who ran the student travel service, who I kind of knew from around the place, came in, and she kind of said, "Oh, what are you still doing here? Haven't you graduated?" And I was a bit embarrassed. And I started kind of loftily saying, "Oh yeah, I'm moving to Edinburgh next week and I'm going into the events industry," talking rubbish. And she said, "Oh, you know, my husband is the manager of the RAF Lucas Air Show." And I didn't. So she got a lot of free samples of cheese that day. And that night I received a phone call. I had an interview the next morning, and by lunchtime I'd been hired as the summer temp. And then 2 months later, I had a full-time job running the commercial side of the biggest one-day air show in the UK. So that was a pretty big but useful meander. So I spent 3 years there. It was one of the strangest and most fun jobs I could imagine starting my career with. But after 3 years, there was nowhere I could really go with it in terms of my own career development. So I started looking for other jobs in the industry and ended up moving to Bristol and beginning to specialise in a pretty niche area of event safety management, which has got nothing to do with health and safety clipboards and all about coming up with crazy creative ideas and delivering them without anybody getting hurt. So that was another geographical meander and going down a kind of specialist field, having started more generally. During this whole period, which was also quite some time ago, and before we all signed up for email alerts and used recruitment apps, I received a letter from my mother with a newspaper ad advertising the position of junior diplomat in the Department of Foreign Affairs in Dublin. So I filled in some forms and wrote some letters and started that process, which took more than 2 years in my case, which is a lot longer than it usually takes. But there were all sorts of other reasons, nothing to do with me, but the system at the time, that kept it slow. Took all the exams and the interviews, and I'd kind of forgotten about it. It kind of gone into freeze in the background because it had reached a certain point and not progressed. I'd moved to Bristol, I'd been there a year and a half, and then I got an email asking me to come home and join the department. So within, I suppose, 6 weeks, I had packed in a career that I was progressing in and specialising and training in, and was living back in Ireland 10 years later, and I was working as a protocol officer and heading off on my first state visit to Canada with President McCulloch. It was a pretty big meander geographically, professionally, but actually I'd been assigned to the protocol department because of my events background, and a state visit runs on a minute-by-minute schedule, and it's all about event management. So since then, I've served in Ireland's embassies in Copenhagen and Warsaw. I've worked at home on our humanitarian response to the crises in the Middle East back in 2015. So I was focused on Iraq, Syria and Yemen, and I represented Ireland in the EU on the humanitarian matters in that area at the same time. I've also since then had the best job title I'll ever have. I was the first head of integrity in Ireland's passport service, building on a previous anti-fraud team to establish a new investigations unit, training programs and international cooperation. And then I was honoured to be appointed as Ireland's 7th Consul General in Scotland. And I took up my post in Edinburgh back in the summer of 2019, which is 15 years after I had left Scotland for Bristol. Every day I use my past experience, my lessons learned, and my network of contacts. And sometimes those are contacts that I haven't been in touch with since we left off more than a decade earlier. So for those of you who've been taking notes, I was negotiating essay deadlines as a student. I was chasing leads and writing reports and stories. I was reacting to opportunities through my network on the spot in a delicatessen. I was operating in unexpected fields and combining general and specialist work, and I kept moving. And these are all the skills and resources that are required by a diplomat every day. I regularly assess whether I'm doing what I want to do, but I avoid pros and cons lists or strengths and weaknesses. I find it's far too easy to focus on the negative. So I make lists of what I'm good at, what I enjoy, and what fundamentally makes me happy. And in various places on these lists, apart from professional issues, I'll also include walking on beaches with my dog, making chutney. I'm really good at making chutney and I like doing it every autumn. I know Brigid's laughing at that. And so far, although I've thought of other things that I might change career again and do, and that includes farming goats, I have also been really happy to see that these categories over the years have continued to align in the area of diplomacy for now. And so I'm happy to keep doing what I'm doing. So my main advice would be to think positive, keep your blinkers off and keep looking around. Make use of your networks and keep expanding them, and focus on what you really want, not what you believe you should want. And staying grounded in your own values is the truest way to achieve any of that. Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much, Jane. That was, I'm sure everyone, if it wasn't for the terrible sound it make, everyone would be applauding. But that, yeah, I think that was a real story about opportunities and taking opportunities. And I might pitch in with the first question, although I see there's hands coming up all over the place. I'd personally be really interested in your views of how to create opportunities, particularly for young professionals across Scotland and Ireland. How you go about. No, please.
I'd say keep focused on what you want and don't narrow that down too much. As I said, keep your eyes open, keep the blinkers off. If you're really fixated on a path and this is where you want to go, you're not going to notice all the things over here and the people who want to help you if you only just ask. So keep an imaginative view of what it is that you want to do. And you know, when you meet people, it never costs to smile and say hello. And smiling and saying hello might be to the person who's the most important. Like that lady, I was really tired at the end of a day selling cheese in a delicatessen. And I have to say, like, she wasn't a lady that I particularly got along with. And she came into the shop and I was kind of like, oh, here we go. And, you know, I smiled. It was my job to sell the cheese. I had to smile and put my best foot forward and do that job. And I ended up starting an entire career out of it just by smiling and saying hello and being nice. So you really don't know where the opportunities are coming from. So it's not a question of waiting for an opportunity to come along going, that's the one I want. You really don't know what smiling and saying hello is going to deliver.
Brilliant, thank you. We've got anyone that would like to pitch in with some questions? There's offers of help with goats in the chat, but we can make those connections.
Don't tempt me. It really wouldn't take very much.
Actually, that was me, Jane. I said, what makes you want to farm goats? And if you do, I can help. Maybe it's the cheese. Maybe it's the cheese or the...
Yeah, I think we could be here for a few hours and I'd get carried away. So let's leave that one for now.
Very good. Thanks, that was wonderful.
Did anyone not get to feedback from their group as well? Because now just a quick chance if anyone wants to pop a wee hand up in case we missed any groups. I'm not sure, did we?
You missed the group I was in, Megan, so you need to ask Steph to come in.
Steph.
Yeah, I was just gonna say I can say a few bullet points on what we were saying. Yeah, so some of the best advice, I kind of only have the main best advice, and also apologies, I'm not sure if people noticed, but I've been moving around my room for the whole day because the sun has been following me, so sorry if anybody clocked that. You couldn't really see my face for the call. But yeah, so some of the advice was, one from Suzanne was you don't have to wait for jobs to be advertised. So she was just saying that earlier on in her career, instead of waiting for some jobs that she was interested in, she just simply reached out to people and then was able to get one of her first jobs from that. So I thought that was quite inspiring, because I know with me and a lot of my friends at the moment, some of them who are still looking for jobs are saying they're interested in certain roles, but they can't see any job listings. And I've kind of just told them, like, you might as well just reach out to a recruiter, see if there's any availabilities or upcoming ones soon. And then Anita mentioned just to always stay open to opportunities, similar to what a lot of people were saying. And then Jane also touched on, don't be afraid to be proactive and go out and get what you want. And then also, if you're lucky enough as well, you'll get those opportunities that you should be taking advantage of. And then she also mentioned to go to work like you're your own boss. So even if you are working for a company, to just always kind of give off a certain presence that you would like if you owned your own company, that you would want everybody to kind of act like as well. And then just the piece of advice I had as well, it was actually a piece of advice that this person got, but I kind of applied it to my personal and my professional life, and it was just to basically speak to yourself like you speak to your best friend. So in the case of if someone's applying for a job or your friend's just doubting themselves, you'd always tell them, oh no, you're fine, don't worry, like as in you'll do great. And it kind of, I think that quote just resonated with me, because I know sometimes I kind of self-doubt myself a lot when I'm trying to go for things. So whenever I remember that quote, I always just kind of tell myself, like, if this was my best friend, I'd be telling them to go for the opportunity. So yeah, that was mine. And I won't lie, I don't really, I can't remember the negative advice right now. I'm not sure if anybody else can, but if you can, fire away.
Oh, well, thanks, Steph. I think that, oh, was someone jumping in? No, fair enough. Brilliant advice. And I think remembering the positives over the negatives is always going to be a good thing. Well, there's been some brilliant discussions so far. I really hope we can continue this into the drinks that are coming up soon. But before that, if I can just hand back over to Ailis, who's going to just summarise a lot of what we've been hearing in terms of Causeway's impact and the membership benefits.
Thank you for that, Finn. Yeah, I'm just jumping back to reiterate that I feel there's never been a better time to join a networking group like this and get motivated and inspired, because I know it can be quite a difficult time. You can feel a bit pessimistic, but it's such a nice group to become a part of and gain a lot of opportunities through. And as I said, we do motivational speakers events, which have helped me a lot. And we're actually unveiling a monthly subscription. So it's only £3 a month, which I won't say, well, I will say the cliche about the cup of coffee, but it's nothing. And Suzanne will be in touch via emails after the event with a summary and information about joining if you wish to do so. I'd also like to say keep an eye on your emails, because we will be announcing the winner of the prize draw for the free membership. And we will take into account if anybody did multiple entries, like sharing it or anything like that. And yeah, thank you everyone for coming. And just before we move on to drinks, I will pass you back to Aoife just to close us off.
Thanks very much.
Can I just jump in actually while you're doing that, just to say that the £3 a month is the young professionals rate. So if you're 30 or under, that's your rate. It's a smidgen more for our experienced members, but we just really want to. We don't want money to be a barrier for young professionals joining us. So we've made it a very simple entry level. Come on in.
Thanks, Brigid. I'd also like to highlight the forthcoming events we have coming up. You'd all be very welcome to attend. I hope you can. Next week, we're taking our Business Awards online for our first virtual Business Awards. This is a celebration of business successes across Scotland, Ireland and Northern Ireland. They've been going every year since 2016, since Causeway launched, and it really is a good opportunity to showcase and celebrate the relationships between the two nations. We also have some more events coming up in October and November. We have, as mentioned at the beginning, we have a relationship with the British and Irish Trading Alliance, so we're going to co-host an event to tell you more about that partnership in October. We're also going to host a webinar with one of our partners and members, RSM, based in Glasgow. They're going to give a talk on the financial implications of Brexit. And Martin McBride, who's on this call today, is also going to be hosting an event on exporting and trading across the Irish Sea. And also in December, we're going to have a wee Christmas networking drink as well, which you'll all be very welcome to attend. Just to summarise, as what Ailis said, this is how you join our websites. It's really quick and easy on our website. We have these different categories, which Brigid mentioned. And yeah, we'd love to have, if you're not a member already, we'd love to have you join. I see we have Matt Christie here today from the Edinburgh Chamber of Commerce and Peter Wade from Enterprise Ireland. They're new members of ours, so you're very welcome to Causeway. And finally, I will close the event by saying big round of applause for our young professionals. They did a tremendous job of pulling this together. So well done, Megan, Ailis and Finn. It's been really superb, and hopefully the first of many events we'll be putting on, bridging together our young professionals with business leaders from across Scotland, Ireland and Northern Ireland. Thanks very much, and now it's time for everyone to hopefully stay on and have a bit of informal chat and a drink. Thanks.